We should be on any, it's loading. So it'll give me a notification.
Okay.
When we're on. Okay, so I
get my
think
granddaughter here playing Trolls World Tour, so she's dancing around if you hear music.
That's fine. That's fine. And we're live now. So listen, she can do what she does. It's okay. It's okay.
She dances.
Well, let me just, okay. So yes, we're on. I can see my phone. Okay. So welcome again. I have a new wig on tonight, Chris. I did a show yesterday and I had on a different wig, but 9:00, they are doing a tribute to Prince. So I said, let me get my Let's Go Crazy, Let's Go Nuts wig on. So
I should have worn mine.
So I can dance in my living room, when Doves Cry and Purple Rain come on. So yeah, but anyway, let me just do my quick intro. This is Kitty London again. Welcome to the People of Power Show. And every week I sit down with movers and shakers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and people who are doing amazing things. And we are still practicing our social distancing on the People of Power. Thank you, Zoom, for working. And yesterday, if you saw me, I did have Darren Cummins. He is a COVID-19 survivor. And I mentioned in that video that I was going to have the owner of Arc Point Labs in West Palm Beach. And he actually is doing now the COVID-19 antibody test. So I know a lot of people may be like, well, what is that? And is that separate from the test or different from the test? So he's here today to answer the question. So welcome, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Hey, I got a crasher. That's me.
That's okay. This is what we do.
She wants it too.
Oh, hey, hello.
All right, you can stay on my lap. We'll talk together.
Okay. So what we'll do while she's on the lap, okay, you're leaving real quick. Hold on one second. And if anybody has any, questions for Chris, he will definitely answer the questions. And hey, Daphne, how are you? Oh, let me start sharing too. Sorry. While Chris is getting prepared. Okay, Chris. So the mic is on you now. You can go ahead.
Okay. No, thanks. Great to be here, Kitty. Good to see you again. You've been staying well?
Yeah, so basically the last time we were together, but we cannot be together now. So I saw you on the news. Kudos to that. You've been doing a lot of press. So I'm glad that you were able to stop by, the People of Power show. But I really want to know, what this test is for, because it's different. It's the testing to have the virus and see if I'm positive for it, but there's also the testing for the antibodies. And I kind of know what it is, but I don't want to spoil it. I want you to tell us what they do.
You're right on. So and there's so much out there around testing and the antibody testing and the concerns around the rapid testing and kits from China and accuracy and sensitivity, and there's just so much. So I'm glad you're having me, because I spend a lot of my day on the phone talking to patients and customers and labs and physicians, and I mean, you name it. But you're right. In the essence of testing for COVID, there's two types of tests. There's the COVID, it's an RNA test, you hear that, or the PCR test. That's the diagnostic test that you take if you're sick and you want to diagnose if you have COVID or not. That's the one, the infamous swab in the nose, drive up car lanes. That's the diagnostic test. That's where we started off with, a month or so ago. In the last couple weeks, a new type of test has come up, and that's the antibody test. And you hear that a lot in the news now. And the antibody test is kind of the post-symptomatic test to confirm whether you've had an exposure to the virus or not. And that's simply to measure for antibodies specific to the COVID-19 virus. If you have it, that means you've been exposed. And if you have the IgG antibodies, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit, there's two types of antibodies. But if you have the antibody, then that means you're in a position where you've built up immunity and antibodies. Now, there's a lot that we still don't know yet about what immunity means. In some virus you can be, you can have an antibody and you can have an immunity of a year or several years. In others, it can be very short or you don't have it at all. So we don't know enough about COVID, but the general consensus is that you have some level of immunity that will last some period of time. That immunity will be better than not having the immunity. And our closest comparison model that I've seen, at least anyway, is with SARS, which is pretty close relative to this one. And the immunity charts generally were about 12 months for someone. So, but you're right, those are the two types of tests.
Okay, so let's say for someone like me, because we were talking on the show yesterday, and we were talking about symptoms, and the symptoms that Darren just described are symptoms that I get. You get the allergy symptoms. Some people get the dry cough. So we're gonna kind of rewind this thing back to January, February, before we knew what it was. There are people that felt like they were sick. They were sicker than they normally were. I would probably, if I was a betting woman, which I am, I do play lottery, but I would bet that people have had it. And they didn't know they had it and they got over it. So for someone who maybe say, okay, I probably had it, I'm good. Why would I take it, or why should I take the antibody test to see if that's the case? Did I have it?
Right. So what? I'll give you an answer to that, but I'll give you start off with a different answer, which is the thing that I found since we started doing this. And I think we were, as far as I know, I think we were the first lab provider to be offering it. There were some others that were talking about doing it, but we kind of started quietly about 2 weeks ago. And we've had probably almost 1,000 tests, I think. And what I would say, I was being interviewed for another story, and they asked me about that. And I think the thing that sticks with me is it's really a human story. It's really a story of people wanting to get some understanding of what's going on with them in their lives and how to get some normalcy back in their life. So why do you do it? It ranges from everything from first-line medical workers and first responders who want to know, they've had a lot of exposure. They want to know if they've had it and if they're safe to go back and be in front of patients or citizens and not put them at risk. I know there's stories of physicians that if they know they have it, and nurses that they know they have antibodies, they're willing to be the first ones to be back in front of severely sick patients because they know they have less risk than their peers that aren't sick. There's families that want to just know because they want to go visit their grandparents. There's a lot of people that want to know because they want to give plasma. If they have the antibodies, there's an opportunity to donate blood. And still, again, there's more research to be done around the effectiveness of plasma therapy, but generally it's viewed that it can be productive and it can help. So there's a lot of people that just want to know so they can do something and contribute blood and plasma to try to help.
I think also too, for me, and I'm sorry to interrupt, I think for me too, it's a mental, it's a peace of mind. It could go either way. It could go where you're thinking you might have it and you're just scared to find out the answer. Cause there are people like that. Like they really just don't want to know. They're like, if I got it, I don't want to know. Cause for some reason people think when they finally get the answer that they start getting the symptoms even worse or whatever. But also I think if you had it, let's just say, if you had it and you're still here and you're normal again, that gives me will give me a sense of empowerment to say, you know what, I beat this thing. It wasn't as bad as maybe everyone made it seem, or, maybe it was, but I'm here. So I think for me, if I was to do it, it would be because one, I would have peace of mind too, or if I'm thinking about, did I ever get it? Was I ever exposed? Whatever, I would know for me. So I don't know, maybe to me, I think it would just, because, the mental thing is sometimes the worst than anything. I'm a hypochondriac, so I've had a lot of things. And then when you finally go to the doctor and they tell you, oh, you don't have it, you're like, oh, God, You feel like a weight has been lifted off of your shoulder, and automatically those symptoms kind of just disappear. But a lot of it's, mental,
Yeah.
because we're all scared.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. It's the only test I've ever seen where people want to be positive. And it's almost like you want to ring the bell when somebody is, or, hand them a glass of champagne because they're really, really happy. But I think, Katie, the other thing is there's a lot of employers that are doing this test and want to do it for their employees because, like, if you heard, the White House briefings, what they talk about is how do you open the economy? And by identifying people who've had the virus and who have immunity buildup, those are the people that can first go back to work and start to create some normality to what we're doing. They can, if you're a restaurant worker and your staff has the frontline staff that's interfacing and working with customers, if they've been if they have the antibody confirmation, then they can work more safely with clients. Anything to do with interacting with people, the service industry, I think it has good ramifications. So there's a lot of interest in employers about understanding where their employees are and giving them peace of mind, but also being able to give that peace of mind to their customers in terms of opening up business more normally, knowing they're not going to put their customers at risk. So
Right.
there's just so much you have to do to understand this. There's so much testing that's required. It's
okay. Well, you have a couple of questions, Chris. This is a hot topic right now. So, let me just get through a couple of them. Hey, Kai Daniels. I probably can't answer this, but I want Chris to answer it because it is his location. But is there a location where one can get the test for the antibodies? What location are you doing these tests in?
So we started this about 2 weeks ago. We're off of 45th Street, so Arc Point Labs on Corporate Way, just off of 45th and 95. Our process is we have an online scheduler with a link, and we can share that with Kitty. But you can go online, you can register and schedule your test. It's a 10-minute window, so it's very fast. You can fill out your paperwork online, you can pay online. So literally, when you come in, we're greeting you, we're checking that you have your paper, we sit you in a chair, we draw a vial of blood, so it's a blood draw, and you're out the door. So we're probably averaging about 3 minutes. And we're doing that from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. every day. We have a waiting list. It's probably about 5 days right now. And we hope to increase capacity. We'll open that up more, but you shouldn't have to wait more than a couple of days to get the test. But we're also doing a lot of on-site. So for some people, they prefer to stay home and they'd like for us to come there. So we have mobile teams that will go to individuals' homes or businesses, and we'll do tests there in whatever is convenient for them. But I think we're the first. I don't know of others yet that are doing it, but I'm sure they're coming and things are moving fast. But we were really pleased to get out the gate as soon as we could to bring this to the community.
Okay, so I have another question from Daphne. It was like a 3-part question. I guess it's probably when you said about 1,000. So I don't know if you can give a percentage on that. But she said, how many of those tested positive for the antibodies, and how accurate is the test, and what is the process? So do you have to go up the nose? Is it painful?
Yeah. The nose is painful. It's terrible. Oh my God. I did that. Oh yeah, it's no fun.
Oh, okay.
But that's not what we're doing. Thank God.
Okay.
So let's see. The first question was
about how many, like, if you can get maybe a percentage of out of 1,000 people right now, how many people do you see that are coming back with the antibodies? Yeah, and then how accurate is the test, and what is the process?
Okay, so first, what we see so far, right? And as we do more, the database grows and it becomes more statistically valid. But just right now, what we're seeing is about a 13 to 15% average positivity rate. which is higher than the national average, but maybe not surprising for Palm Beach County, because we know Palm Beach County has a fairly high rate of infection here in the state. So that's what we're seeing right now. It's somewhat interesting because I think you hear some reports of maybe it's 4 or 5%. But so far, that's what we found. It's around 13, 15% right now. Second question, in terms of the accuracy. So our test, what we use is an immunoassay test, which is a fancy word for, it's a blood draw test. So it's not the finger prick. The finger prick is a rapid test. Those come with a kit. Those kits are imported from China. And I think probably most of your listeners know there's been a lot of concern about the accuracy of those kits, the quality of those kits, whether they're counterfeit or not. So we moved away from that, and we're using the lab-based test because it's really kind of the gold standard. It goes into a laboratory. It's all FDA instrumentation that does the processing. The reagents have been filed up through FDA under Emergency Use Act for review for approval. And the accuracy of that is a 97.5%. The good thing is all of this is moving very fast. So as the tests improve and the accuracy improves and protocols improve, we're able to move very quickly to implement those. And then the third question was?
The third question was the process. Like, how
okay. So it's like I described, you register online, you complete a form, you bring it in, you show up at your appointment, we sit you in a chair, we draw one tube of blood. So it's like going to a doctor for a blood draw, and you're gone. We put a Band-Aid on you and you walk out. You get a result in, it depends on the activity of the lab, but somewhere between 2 to 4 days, you'll get your results back. And we send them via email.
Okay, so that actually answered Janice's question, because she asked how long. So the number one question, I think this is always a question because people want to know, does insurance pay for it, or is it covered by insurance? And if not, like, how much do we come out of the pocket? Because people are interested and they want to know.
Sure. Oh yeah. No, so right now, I don't know all insurance answers, but I'll tell you what I'm hearing. So right now the test is not covered. Well, we're not filing for insurance, but we provide clients with the information they need for insurance. And what we're being told is that they're filing for reimbursement. And my understanding is it's successful. That's been a way that people have been reimbursed for it. I also understand that insurance companies are working with their constituencies to cover it. So that's what we've heard. We provide the necessary information, and that's the progress and process we've heard people be successful with.
Okay, so
you want to check with your insurance company, but what you want to say, will you reimburse me? And that would be the answer. But I hear that that's commonly the answer is yes.
Okay, let me just make sure I asked everything. Okay.
Oh, but she asked the price. So the price is $195.
Okay, so $195. And I mean, I would think that, I would at least hope that a lot of these insurance, I think because it's new right now, like an insurance company really hasn't had to really deal with a pandemic. So I'm sure eventually they're going to have to roll out something. I don't even know how much testing. I never asked Darren either that. I know he joins. I don't even know if there's the testing, when people go to the baseball fields now and they're getting tested. I've never asked that. And that's crazy. Like, how much is a test for COVID-19? I need to find that out. But anyway, okay. Prissy has a question. If we take the antibody test and we've been exposed as frontline healthcare providers, should we be quarantined or not if we're taking care of patients? So I guess the question is, if I'm a healthcare worker and my test comes back positive, so that means I have the antibodies, am I contagious? Do you know that or not?
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because it's an important question. So here's how your immune system responds to the virus. When you're exposed to the virus, there's a latency period, and that can be anywhere from 7 to 10 days. It depends. But there is this long latency period. And what that means is that you've been exposed and you're actually infected with the virus, but you don't have any symptoms yet. So you feel good, you're normal, you don't even suspect that you have it. In the meantime, though, you are infected and you are contagious to other people. That's probably the biggest concern that the healthcare community has, and why you hear so much about tracing, trying to identify people who come in contact with others. Once you have the virus, after about 7 days or so, you start building up, 7 to 10 days, you start building up your first responder antibodies. Those are called IgM. The IgM antibodies, they grow very quickly in response to the activity or the infection, but then they drop off very quickly, and they're replaced by another antibody called IgG. The IgGs are like your long-term occupational force that stays with you for some period of time. It can be months, it can be years. And that's what's there to protect you if that virus reinfects you, that the antibodies are there to attack the virus, and that gives you the protection. So when you take the test, there's 4 conditions you can get. You can get an answer that says a negative. What that means is that at the time of the test, you have no antibodies in your system. So that means prior to that, you hadn't been exposed, or you haven't been exposed long enough that your body has a chance to build up any antibodies. The second condition is we see IgM antibodies, and that's all we see. If we see IgM, then we know that you're in kind of the middle phase of fighting the virus. You've been infected, you probably had symptoms, your body's responded with IgM antibodies, you're fighting it, but you haven't got the point where those IgGs have started to come up yet. So you're really just dealing with a shorter term IgM. What does that mean for you? That means if you get an IgM response, in my opinion, you should still quarantine, because again, the science isn't perfect, but you're still fighting it. You've got an immune response. My opinion is it's best to go quarantine for another week and wait to get fully through it. And at that point, you'll get to the third condition where you have some IgG, some IgMs. And then the fourth condition is when you're past all that, after 2 weeks maybe, your all IgG and your IgM are gone. At that point, if you're free of any kind of symptoms for a week or 2 weeks, and you have a strong IgG or you have an IgG, then that is a really good answer, because you've had it, you're over it, and you have antibodies. The general consensus is you're in a good position because you've built up an immune response to the antibodies, and you should be over it. So your question is, if I have an antibody like an IgM, should I quarantine myself? I think so. If you only have IgM, it's probably worth taking a week in quarantining. But remember, when we started, this test is not the diagnostic test. The only way to tell if you actually have it is to take the PCR test or the swab test that will confirm if you have it. So CDC's guidance, long story short, CDC's guidance is if you're sick, you should quarantine yourself for a period of 2 weeks. During that time, you can take the swab test, see if you actively have it. If you're not, then when you feel better, you can go back to work. But if you have an IgG response as a positive, you're in a low risk position. You can be around people and patients and you'll be fine. Fine meaning relatively, you can be less concerned about protection. You can take a little more liberty.
Gotcha. Okay, so hopefully that answered the question. I think the last one, is the test validated? Is it like a FDA or approved? Is it validated?
Yeah.
That was a question from Leah.
Yeah, and that's another great one we've got. We could talk a half an hour on that. So long story short, there's 3 levels of FDA approval that they put in place. There's the traditional FDA approval that takes about 2 years to get something through it. When the COVID-19 emergency came, they opened up 2 other ways. Policy position on March 16th allowed companies to take to market their own products to test for COVID. And then they put in an emergency use act as well, which allows companies to go to the next step and have another review by FDA, which is a next step higher in terms of they review it and they give a letter that says they've reviewed it. So all of our testing is done on FDA instrumentation, and the reagent, which is what's used with the testing equipment to identify COVID, has been applied through that FDA approval process.
Love it. Well, one thing I can say about you, Chris, honey, you don't dodge a question. So I'm listen, you know your stuff. You know, that's a good thing, because a lot of times, you know, we get people on the shows and, you know, they don't want to answer questions, especially our pricing. I know that's a big one, but it is what it is. I mean, hey, it's $195, but again, it comes with a lot. I wanted to, because I know you are just not the COVID antibody testing center. You have so many other tests, and you know, like we were supposed to get back together, and it's going to come, but because I really want people to know more about this test. I took 2 tests there, and I mean, you have a slew of tests. I don't know if how many people are watching me now saw our original interview. I mean, you do DNA testing, and it goes to DNA testing, meaning you are not the father, DNA testing to I need to check my way my body chemistry works of how I eat and what I should eat and how my body processes things. And then you also have the food sensitivity test, which I recommend both of those tests for everybody who has a mouth. And everyone has a mouth, because that test like changed me. I mean, yeah, I'm so chubby. You know, I eat a lot of what I can eat. But when I found out that I had a sensitivity to eggs and chicken, Chris, I needed a therapist after that, you know?
I know sometimes you don't want to know. Sometimes
No,
it's better not to know.
listen, you don't know how serious this is. I'm a Black woman, okay? I like my chicken and I like my eggs, okay? But when I did eliminate those from my diet, I honestly felt, I mean, muscle aches, the bloating, you know, like I said, certain things I eat, I'm still like working. I mean, it takes a work in progress, but when you know the things that you need to stay away from, and because we're into all the fad diets, you know, we go on oh, you lost this, you lost it. We got so many diets out there. And then we wonder why sometimes, well, my girlfriend lost 20 pounds, but I gained 5 on the diet, or it didn't work for me, or my husband's on the diet and I'm not. So you have to like do what your body is able to do, and some things your body won't be able to break down. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because those 2 tests are life-changing. They really are.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had success with it and it helped you. Those 2 tests to me they're just kind of like getting your owner's manual for your body, and they're something you can do once in your life. It's not like you have to do it monthly or annually. It's really just to do 2 things. One is the DNA test is instructive because it tells you genetically how your body's built and its preference and its ability to metabolize and function across a number of dimensions around fitness, diet, nutrition, micronutrients, and some other factors. And so basically the test looks at those things, but what it does is to say, not everybody's built the same. Not everybody metabolizes all micronutrients the same. Not everybody has a successful fitness program by exercising the same way. Our muscle structures are different. The way our bodies react and interpret nutritional inputs vary depending on both our lifestyle conditions and the quality of foods we eat, but just genetically how we're adapted to be able to process and interact with our environments. So the genetic test is really good because it'll tell you if you do this, you'll have more success, and if you do this, you'll have worse success. So that's pretty clear. You know, that's good for me. I get direction from my wife, do this, don't do that. The test the same way, you know, do this, don't do that. So once you know that, then kind of the next test, which you talked about, is food sensitivity. The food sensitivity test says, okay, so you can eat food and, let's just say, for example, that the DNA test says that you don't metabolize folic acid very well, or vitamin B well. So you know that you have to supplement those. So maybe you say, well, I'm going to eat more foods that have that. A food sensitivity test says, independent of your genetic makeup, how does your body react chemically to an immune-based response to the food you eat? And what we find is that certain foods will create a reaction in your body that creates a negative effect. So it can create symptoms like lethargy, or headaches, or mood swings, or you can't sleep, or being swollen. And oftentimes we can't diagnose what that is because it's not a direct symptom, it's an indirect symptom. It's because our body's responding to something that we've taken in, and it's creating inflammation, ultimately inflammation. And inflammation is really the source of most disease. So by reducing the foods that create inflammation, and that's really what the blood test does, is looking for at a cellular level what kind of antibodies, again, are responding. And the more inflammation producing activities occurred by particular foods, those register as foods you should stay away from. And those where you have no reaction to, those are foods you can eat all day. So all of that gets in a report that says on one end, hey, you're good to go. You can eat all this you want. But Kitty, when it comes to chicken and eggs, you probably should have those very infrequently because your body's going to react to those. So like for me, cinnamon is like the highest, worst of the worst. Like for some reason, cinnamon, I should.
Well, listen, I would trade cinnamon any day. Okay. I don't need cinnamon.
Right. I got my eggs though, and my chicken. So
don't rub it in, Chris. Okay. Don't rub it in. Let me just, you didn't have any more questions. I think I did Leah's question wrong. She said validated, not approved. So I don't know. I guess that's a different word.
Yeah, that's a much better word. Yeah.
Validated. Okay.
It's approved is like, yeah, that's the FDA is never going to get to approving these things because it takes years.
Okay.
So validated or authorized are two better words. That's really a more accurate word.
Okay, so that's, I guess, is that a yes to the
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, yeah. We are very plugged into all of what's available. And that's the thing, the next great thing that comes, we're just pivoting to it because we're lab agnostic. So we can go to who's ever got the best technology and the best protocols. But we absolutely follow the FDA.
Great. So what I'm going to do is when we end the video, I'm going to put your information, your phone number. The phone number is to the labs when people want to make an appointment for any of the services, correct? Okay.
Yeah, what I'll do, I'll give you the link because that's the easiest way for people to schedule an appointment now.
Okay.
It's very
I'll put the link. When you send me the link, I'm going to edit the video and then I'll put the link on top of the video so people will have it.
Perfect.
All right. Did we cover? I think we covered everything pretty much for tonight.
I think so. It was a good start. You can have me back anytime. There's a lot to cover.
Okay, great. Yes. And I know that the people start dropping off because, Prince is on now. So it's hard to compete. It's hard to compete with Prince. But you've answered, everyone's questions. I thank you for joining us again, giving us the information. I will continue to share the video, share the information, because this is just the beginning of unfortunately, this beast called COVID-19. So to know that we do have options where we can see if we do, or we were exposed, or we have the antibody, but we have options now. So I want to thank you. And for people who don't know where you are located, I always say near Burger King, 45th Street, Corporate Way, but I'll put the information on top of the video. And then when you send me the link, I'll add that. So everyone will have the information and they can just go forward with their testing. And you have multiple testing. So I'm going to put the website on there too, so people can see all the services you offer as well. So it's like I said, thank you again. And you can use any final words.
No, just be safe. And I wish everybody well.
All right. Well, we will see you later. And again, if you have any new new testing, let me know so we can let the people know. All right.
Will do. Thanks.
All right. Have a great one. So once you send me the link, I'm going to update the video, and I'm sure you'll be getting some calls. So you have a great night, Chris, and thank you for joining us once again.
Kitty, thanks so much. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. You too.